I was 9 years old the first time I heard the scratching, soft, steady, and coming from inside the wall behind my bed. My mother said it was rats. My father never spoke. But the day I turned 32, I broke through the drywall and found something that should never have been there. A white wooden door with no handle, no hinges, and no frame, just a door, sealed flat inside the wall, like it had been waiting for me. And when I touched it, I remembered something I'd spent my entire life trying to forget. The house wasn't beautiful, but it was mine. A two-story colonial at the dead end of Ashland Drive, with sagging gutters and chipped white paint. My parents left it to me after they died 6 months apart, Dad from a heart attack, Mom from what the coroner called complications of dementia, though there was something in her eyes during those last weeks that never felt like confusion. It felt like warning. I moved in 3 weeks ago. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I got back on my feet. My job had dissolved in the aftermath of a corporate merger, and my lease had expired 2 days before Mom's funeral. So I came home. To the creaking floors, the yellow wallpaper, the smell of mildew that no amount of candles could cover. The first night, I slept in my old bedroom. Same position, same bed frame, same corner of the house. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the crickets, the occasional groan of the wood expanding. Then the scratching. It started softly, just under the mattress. A slow, deliberate scraping that climbed up the wall behind my headboard. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up, but I didn't move. I waited. It stopped. The next day, I tore apart the wall. I told myself I'd find a squirrel nest, maybe a busted pipe. But what I found was silence. No rats. No nest. Just dry, dusty plaster and cracked insulation. I patched it up, repainted, and tried to forget. But it came back. Every night at 3:17 a.m., without fail. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Always 3 times. Always the same rhythm. I stopped sleeping. I started drinking. I bought noise-canceling headphones, sleeping pills, even tried recording it, but the recorder never picked up anything. 2 weeks in, I gave up on logic. And that's when I saw the door. It was buried inside the wall. I found it by accident, after knocking too hard and watching a large section of plaster crumble. Behind it was smooth wood, white, unblemished, like it had never aged. No hinges. No knob. Just a rectangle of something impossibly still. My heart skipped. The moment my fingers brushed the surface, something snapped behind my eyes. I staggered backward, heart racing, the memory bleeding through like ink and water, blood, footsteps, a woman screaming. But when I looked again, the door was gone. Just wall. Only. I knew better. It wasn't gone. It was waiting. And I wasn't alone in the house. Not anymore. The next night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I sat in the corner of my childhood bedroom with a crowbar in one hand and a flashlight in the other, staring at the patch of wall where I'd seen the door. I kept the lights off, let the dark fill the room like it used to when I was a kid, when I'd lie awake, afraid to blink, afraid to breathe, because I knew if I did, the scratching would start again. The clock read 3:16 a.m. 1 minute left. My heart thudded in my ears, louder than the crickets outside, louder than the air conditioner rattling through the vent. I pointed the flashlight at the wall. My fingers trembled. I was ready. Whatever this was, I was going to face it. Then scratch, scratch, scratch. Exactly on time. But this time, it was louder. Deeper. Not like an animal. Not claws. Fingernails. Human. I lunged forward and drove the crowbar into the drywall, ripping it open in wide, clumsy arcs. Plaster rained down. Wood splintered. And there it was again, the white door. Same smooth surface, same impossible stillness. I touched it, and the memory hit like a car crash. A woman's voice shrieking, begging. My mother? No, not her voice. Another woman, one I didn't recognize. There was blood, on linoleum, and a smell, iron, sweat, something burning. Then, nothing. I fell backward, panting. My skin felt like it didn't belong to me. I crawled away, backed into the opposite wall, and sat there until sunrise. When I checked again, the door was gone, sealed over with fresh drywall, smooth as if it had never been touched. I didn't leave the house for days after that. I couldn't. Something about it, about that door, made me feel like if I walked away, I'd lose whatever was hiding behind it forever. And I needed to know. I needed to understand why my mind had torn this out, buried it so deep that even I had forgotten. So I started digging. Not just the wall. The history. I went through old boxes in the attic, my parents' documents, photos, everything they'd left behind. Most of it was junk, school awards, tax forms, moldy books. But then I found it. A locked metal file box tucked behind a beam. Inside were two things: a Polaroid and a death certificate. The photo was old, yellowed, taken in the backyard. It showed me at maybe 6 years old, holding the hand of a woman I'd never seen before. She was smiling, but her eyes looked sad. The kind of sadness that doesn't go away. The death certificate was hers. Name: Deborah Lancaster. Age: 28. Cause of death: blunt force trauma. Location: Ashland Drive. Year: 1999. But here's the part that made my stomach drop. Under relation to next of kin, it said, guardian of minor, Isaac Merritt. My name. But I didn't remember her. I didn't remember anything about her. And my parents, they never once mentioned her name. The scratching came again that night. Not 3 times this time, 5. And then, a whisper. So faint I thought I imagined it. Ike, let me out. I stared at the Polaroid until the image blurred. My 6-year-old self stood barefoot in the grass, clutching the woman's hand like I trusted her more than the world itself. She knelt beside me, smiling gently, one arm wrapped around my shoulders like she was protecting me. But there was something hollow behind her eyes. A weight. Her name, Deborah Lancaster, meant nothing to me. No flicker of recognition. No memory. But she had died in this house. Blunt force trauma. 1999. The same year the scratching started. I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew me, that I knew her. The way she held me, that wasn't casual. That wasn't a babysitter. That was someone who loved me. And yet, she was gone. Erased. As if someone had taken a scalpel to my memory and carved her out like rot. I called my aunt, my mom's sister, Sarah. She lived 3 states away and had never been close with our family. But I needed answers. I asked about 1999. About Deborah. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Ike, you shouldn't be digging that up, she finally said. Her voice was tight, brittle. There are things your mother didn't want you to remember. Things she kept hidden to protect you. From what? I snapped. From the truth? From yourself, she whispered. She hung up. That night, the door was back. Not in the wall this time, in the hallway. It stood at the end of the 2nd floor landing, glowing faintly in the dark. White, handleless, impossibly pristine. I reached for it again, hand trembling. But before my fingers touched it, it opened, just a crack. And I saw her. Deborah. Not as she was in the photo, but pale, drawn, eyes sunken and rimmed with bruises. She stood in the threshold, watching me. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her voice inside my skull. Ike, you saw. You know. I blinked, and the door slammed shut. I ran to it. Slammed my fist against the wood. Nothing. Just cold, seamless white. I screamed. Cried. Fell to the floor like a child. Later that night, I searched again through the box of files. That's when I found it. A single, folded sheet of yellow legal paper tucked beneath the death certificate. A journal entry. In my mother's handwriting. October 6th, 1999. He doesn't remember. After what happened, the doctor says it's a form of dissociative amnesia. He watched it. All of it. But now, nothing. Like his brain wiped it clean. I can't decide if that's a blessing or a curse. Deborah was. She was trying to protect him. And now she's gone. We told the police it was an intruder. They believed us. I think we all started to believe it too, after a while. But Isaac saw what really happened. Even if he doesn't know it yet. I dropped the paper. Dissociative amnesia. I had seen it. Whatever it was, I'd been there. And my brain had buried it like a corpse in the yard. I didn't leave the house for 3 days. I couldn't. The world outside didn't feel real anymore. It felt like a set, a distraction, something paper-thin and ready to collapse. Everything I thought I knew about my childhood was crumbling. I kept rereading the journal entry until the words stopped making sense. He watched it. All of it. But now, nothing. What had I seen? What could be so horrific that my mind would erase it to protect me? I needed help. I scheduled an emergency appointment with a trauma therapist, Dr. Melinda Cho, in downtown Harrisburg. She specialized in childhood memory retrieval and dissociative disorders. I didn't tell her everything, not about the door, not about the voice. Just enough to not sound insane. When I told her about the death of Deborah Lancaster and my complete lack of memory from that time, she nodded slowly. It's not uncommon for children exposed to intense trauma to develop dissociative amnesia. It's the brain's emergency brake. But those memories are still there. Locked away. How do I unlock them? She hesitated. There are techniques. EMDR. Hypnotherapy. But I need to warn you, if your brain has gone this far to protect you, whatever's behind that wall could be devastating. I scheduled the first session for the next day. That night, I couldn't stay in the bedroom. I camped out in the living room, lights on, crowbar beside me. But the door didn't come that night. No scratching, no whispers. Instead, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to silence and the sound of footsteps above me. Deliberate, slow. In my bedroom, I climbed the stairs, every nerve screaming. When I opened the door to my old room, it was ice cold. Frost clung to the windows despite it being May. The wall was wide open, crumbled and splintered, but the door wasn't there. What was there was a passage. Not possible, not architecturally real, but it stretched back behind the drywall like the house had grown a tumor. I followed it, flashlight flickering, breath steaming in the air. At the end of the passage was another door. This one wasn't white. It was red, and it had a handle. My hand shook as I turned it. The room on the other side was small, tiled, like a bathroom, but empty. One hanging light bulb, one drain in the floor, and on the wall, child's drawings. Dozens of them, all scrawled in black crayon. The same scene over and over. A small boy standing in front of a woman lying in a pool of red. Always red. And a man, standing over her, smiling. My knees gave out. I knew that smile. I'd seen it my whole life. It was my father. I crawled to the nearest drawing and examined the scrawl beneath it. I saw you kill her. The next day, I confronted Dr. Cho with everything. The drawings, the passage, the memory coming back in pieces. She stared at me, face unreadable. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Isaac, there's no record of a Deborah Lancaster ever living in your house. No police report. No death certificate. Not even an obituary. I checked. Officially, she never existed. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I sat in the attic, surrounded by yellowed boxes and insulation dust, gripping the photo of me and Deborah like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. She was real. I knew she was real. I'd seen her eyes. Felt her hand on mine. She whispered my name through the walls. That's not something you forget. Unless someone wants you to. The next morning, I went to the county records office. I wanted proof, something to prove I wasn't losing my mind. I searched death records, missing persons reports, property transfers. Nothing. It was like Dr. Cho said, Deborah Lancaster had never officially existed. But the Polaroid didn't lie. The handwriting in my mother's journal didn't lie. My father's smile and those crayon drawings definitely didn't lie. Back at the house, I dug deeper. Literally. There was a spot in the backyard I couldn't stop staring at, just beneath the dogwood tree. Something about it felt wrong. Too flat. Too quiet. I started digging with a shovel I found in the shed. 3 feet down, I hit metal. A small, rusted tin box. Inside were newspaper clippings. All folded. All brittle. I opened them slowly, my hands shaking. There was one from 1998. A brief, 2-paragraph article. Woman found dead in motel room outside Harrisburg. Authorities identify as Deborah Lancaster, 28. Cause of death undetermined. Foul play not suspected. But there was no photo. No follow-up article. No funeral notice. I looked closer. The handwriting on the edges of the clipping. Scribbled in ink. We told them it was a motel. My father's handwriting. The blood drained from my face. I ran back into the house, tearing through the photo albums. Nothing. No pictures of Deborah. Not a single one. But there were gaps, whole pages missing. I checked the VHS tapes. Most were blank. Home videos labeled Birthday 1999 and Christmas were just static. Erased. Someone had scrubbed her out. But not completely. I pulled out the last tape. One I didn't recognize. No label. Just a date. October 6th, 1999. I slid it into the old VHS player and hit play. At first, static. Then, a shaky image of the kitchen. My kitchen. My mother pacing, eyes wild, hair disheveled. She was crying. Then the camera jerked. My father stepped into frame. Calm. Too calm. And behind him, a woman. Bound. Gagged. Deborah. She was bruised, bleeding. Alive. I watched, frozen, as my father whispered something in her ear. She screamed against the gag. The camera panned to the corner, where a child sat on the floor, knees pulled to chest. Me. 6 years old. Staring blankly. Dissociating. The tape cut off. I vomited in the sink. My own voice echoed in my ears. You saw? You know, that night, the white door returned. Not in the wall, in the mirror. It shimmered faintly in the reflection. I reached for it, but my hand passed through glass. Then the voice came again, closer this time. Ike, they made you forget. But I never left. And this time, when I looked in the mirror, she was standing behind me. I couldn't move. Her reflection stood just behind mine in the mirror, Deborah, her eyes hollow, bruises still ghosting her face. But there was something more, something broken in the shape of her mouth. She wasn't just sad. She was waiting. I turned around fast. No one there. But when I looked back into the mirror, she hadn't moved. Still watching me. Still standing too close. I stumbled backward and smashed the mirror with the crowbar. Glass rained down. I was bleeding, but I barely noticed, because as the shards scattered across the floor, every single one showed her face. Dozens of Deborah's, frozen and fractured reflections, eyes locked on mine. I locked myself in the bathroom and sat on the cold tile until morning. Dr. Cho didn't answer my calls. I went to her office. The receptionist said she was taking a leave of absence, but the way she said it, eyes averted, voice tight, told me it wasn't voluntary. I checked online. Her license had been suspended. Patient safety concerns. She had vanished, just like Deborah. By then, the house felt infected. The air was heavier. The light dimmer, even during the day. Shadows stretched where they shouldn't. Doors closed on their own. Every time I turned a corner, I expected to see her standing in some forgotten hallway, staring at me with that same mute desperation. I couldn't stay, but I couldn't leave either. Something was pulling me in. So I gave in. That night, I followed the sound. Not scratching this time, humming. A lullaby. Soft. Off-key. I knew it. I didn't know how I knew it, but it filled me with a nausea so deep it made my bones ache. The sound led me back to the red room. But this time, it was different. Bigger. Rotting. The walls were lined with photographs, all of them burned at the edges. All of them me. At every age. Staring blankly at the camera, never smiling. And in the center of the room, a chair. An old wooden chair, the kind with leather straps on the arms. And next to it, a TV. Already playing. It was me again. 6 years old. Sitting in that chair. Crying. My father's voice off camera, calm and cold. Tell the truth, Ike. What did she say to you? More crying. He slapped the child version of me. The camera shook. Say it. Now. I watched myself scream. She said you were hurting her. Then a gunshot. The tape cut to black. The floor buckled beneath me. I screamed, but the sound came out muffled, like I was underwater. The red room dissolved, and I was back in the hallway. The white door was in front of me again. This time it was wide open. Beyond it, a small, gray room. A single mattress. A child's drawing taped to the wall. And in the corner, her body. Deborah. Still. Cold. Eyes open. I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me. And that's when I remembered everything. Every second. Every scream. Every lie. She had begged him not to make me watch. That's the first thing that came back. Her voice, sharp with terror and love at the same time, echoing off the kitchen walls as my father dragged her by the wrist, screaming. I had been sitting at the table, coloring. I remember that too now, the way my crayon snapped in half when she started crying. Ike, baby, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Please. But I didn't. He made sure of that. The white door clicked shut behind me, sealing the silence. Deborah's body wasn't just an image, it was real. I could smell her. The faint rot of time-stilled death, the metallic sting of blood long dried into the floorboards. But there was something more, something that vibrated under my skin like static electricity. The truth. It clawed its way up my throat as I looked around the small, windowless room. This wasn't just where she died. It was where my father kept her. Days. Maybe weeks. He built it himself. Converted the crawl space under the stairs. Soundproofed. Hidden behind a fake panel in the wall. That's why no one ever found her. Why the cops never questioned anything. Because she wasn't murdered in some motel room like the forged documents claimed. She died here. In our house. And I had watched it happen. I remembered now. Every night after school, he'd make me sit in front of the vent that led into this room. She needs to hear your voice, he'd say. She trusts you. I used to sing to her through the vent. Lullabies. The same ones my mom used to sing to me. And then one night, she didn't respond. That's when he told me. It's your fault, Ike. You stopped singing. You let her die. I was 6 years old. My mind folded in on itself like wet paper. I started calling her the scratching lady. My mother, terrified but complicit, took me to a doctor. I was diagnosed with early-onset hallucinations and anxiety. They medicated me. They buried the truth. And eventually, it worked. I forgot. Until the house remembered. I turned back to Deborah's body. But it wasn't there anymore. Just a mirror. My reflection stared at me, pale and sunken-eyed. And behind me him. My father. Younger. Sharper. The version I knew from childhood. He smiled the way he always did when he lied. "Ike," he whispered. "You did good. You kept the secret." I screamed. Swung the crowbar straight through the mirror. It shattered, but he didn't vanish. He just stepped out. Not real. Not truly. Just the rot that trauma leaves behind when it stays too long in one place. But I fought him. I screamed until my throat bled. Swung until the shadows crumbled. And when I was done, the door opened again. Sunlight. Fresh air. I crawled out. It took weeks to explain it all. The evidence in the crawl space. The tape. The bones beneath the dogwood. The authorities unearthed it slowly. My mother had died with the secret still locked in her chest. But the world finally saw. My father's name was dragged through the papers. Deborah's was finally spoken. And me? I never left the house. I turned the red room into a studio. I paint now, nothing beautiful. Just what I remember. And every night at 3:17, I light a candle at the spot where the white door used to be. And whisper, "I remember Deborah. I remember everything."